We are super excited to bring this webinar to you, how AI is shaping the future of wealth management. Laura's going to do a meet of the presenting. I have some questions for her, and I can't wait to hear answers. I know some of them, and some of them I don't know the answers, so I can't wait to see where this webinar goes. It will be interactive, so you can throw questions in the chat. We'll try to get to them probably at the end, unless I can incorporate them as we go. But Laura, anything else to add before we get going?
Let's get going.
Okay. Um, Really quickly, my name is Mike Byrnes. I own Byrnes Consulting. I speak all over the country, and I write a lot in the industry, writing more and more on the topic of AI and getting quoted on that too. So if you ever have something good that's an interesting story angle, shoot it my way. We'll share our contact information to the people that register. But if there is any question that I can answer, but again, I want to turn things over to Laura because she's the star of the show, so to speak. And so, Laura, would tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so Mike, first of all, thank you for setting this up. I'm really excited about our partnership and our mutual passion about the financial services industry. Most of the people on this call know my history, but I started as a financial advisor and very attracted, pulled to this industry because whether we like it or not, money creates opportunities and experiences in our lives. And before starting Wealth Tech Matchmaker, I worked at United Capital, at Goldman, focused on bringing behavioral finance into the planning process. How we feel and think about money influences our decisions and the impacts. It's not just a financial plan and numbers. And regardless of whatever company I was working for or product I was representing, whenever I sat down with a financial advice firm, the first words out of their mouth was, I have so much technology, I don't even know what to do with it. And that's really the basis of Wealth Tech Matchmaker. Is just like an advisor sits down with their client, I sit down with a financial advice firm and say, tell me about your business strategy. Tell me about your goals. Then let's maximize the value of your current tech spend. Dollars and time are precious for all of us. And then third, let me match you to the friends that I've made in this industry who are right for you at this time. And so that's what I'm doing, and I'm really loving it. And it's definitely energized me back to those days of when I started as an advisor helping individual clients.
Yeah, and I know we want to get to the content quick, but Laura, you're like perfectly positioned because I'm a big believer of that whole Moore's law about transistors and circuits. Well, now with AI, it's gonna just shoot up exponential. There'll be so many tech companies and advisors in the wealth management space just can't keep. They're not gonna be able to keep up. They're having a hard time keeping up as it is, and even the big custodians and broker dealers, they're overloaded too. So you're in a great spot, and I'm so happy to have you here. I'm going to kick things off with a pretty simple question. What trends are you seeing in the industry?
Yeah. There's three trends that I see. It was interesting. So with my business, I work with the gamut. There's firms who are breakaways and just starting out, and there's enterprise firms and everything in between. But what's consistent across those firms is three things. It's number one is increasing advisor efficiency. That's not a new thing that we've been talking about. It's a constant. Is how do we help advisors serve more clients in a more efficient, more process oriented way, but still keep that human interaction, which is very important to this business. It's proactive planning. So I feel that every advisor you talk to, they're like, I feel like I'm on my back foot every time. And advisors didn't get into this business for this, right? They're relationship focused people, they're heart focused people. And how do we get into this front foot, being proactive, anticipating client needs, and being prescriptive rather than order takers? The third trend I see is including the voice of the customer and the prospect into the planning process. I know that every good firm out there has a cadence of when we send client surveys or how we capture client data. But I think that there's something very different about when you receive a survey, and I'm going to be in this mindset. I receive a survey, it's 5 minutes to complete. It's going to take me 15 minutes of my life to do it. If I love my advisor and I'm in a really good mood, I'm going to be very favorable in those things because I want to give like a good comment, a good review to my advisor. If I've had a bad day, if the markets are down, if headlines are bad, I'm going to receive that survey and I'm going to come back with a different kind of mindset in answering that. But where I think technology can help us is really capture the sentiment of the client in that moment. And how can we capture that sentiment in the moment and then add it to the client feedback and find those disparities and really not just kind of respond to the squeaky wheel, but respond to the source of how we help people better.
Yeah. And that the first trend was about efficiencies, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah, first
I 100,
transaction.
100% that's a real trend. It always has been, but I think now it's just going to be supercharged with AI and other technological advancements. I sit on the FSI task force, AI task force, and I don't want to give away what we're talking about because it'll be launched and rolled out at some point this year. But I will tell you that efficiencies is a big part of it, and how do you make those decisions? What goes into it? Like, it's coming at us so fast. What are the right ways to do it, etc.
Yeah. One of my friends and mentors has this phrase of we want everybody in the company reaching up and taking on new tasks. So advisors should be focused on building more relationships and understanding those needs. Relationship managers should be focused on playing to the highest of their license. Operations people should understand that these manual tasks are this. And then how can technology come in as a booster for all of that? How can technology take away those manual tasks that all of us have in a day to get to that human to human reaction?
Mhm. Anything else on the proactive planning?
Yeah, and this was my day in a life as an advisor, and it's been my day in a life as working with advisors, is that the 80% of your day is set on I have to do these compliance tasks. I have to do these annual meetings. I really see a shift in our industry of going from the scheduled cadence of meetings
Uh-huh.
to on time advice, just kind of like the manufacturing industry went through, is yes, here's going to be these very specific planning points, and we're going to have a very process oriented way to make sure that this happens. So we're covering the basis from a compliance standpoint. But where an advisor's real skill and value comes in is that just in time advice and anticipate. And there's a lot of things that technology is coming out with that they can anticipate when people might have health crises that you need planning for. Are you more prone to and discover, like in the old days of insurance, it's like, okay, we're looking at the entire gamut and you should have insurance and risk things to cover X. Technology is coming in a way where we can say, because of where you live, because of your genetics, because of your lifestyle, here are things that we need to proactively plan for you and your specific life. And I'm not giving this vanilla advice from every client. This is specifically for people like you. And moving to that and being more of that proactive planner is I think where the industry is going.
Yeah, and I would agree that all the data that's out there, or data, however you say it, it gets siloed in different companies and all
Yep.
that stuff. Technology is going to advance so much that all of that stuff can be interwoven and in real time, like you said, and like we'll talk about AI more in a second, but it doesn't sleep, right? So where an advisor might be on the golf course or in a lunch meeting or not picking up the phone because they're on vacation or whatever. But technology is going to be going nonstop all the time and being able to handle way more tasks than humans can, as long as it's heading in the right direction, right?
And that leads to next best action. That's, a great phrase is like all of us, what's the next best thing I could act on? And so right now we're using a lot of our human computer, our brain, to decide that, which some days it's good, some days it's not so good for what's out of our lives. But how can technology complement that
Mhm.
to help us say, okay, here's the human things I know that I need to focus on, but also here's the computer and helping me open up to the blind spots that I have.
Well, and so I don't know if this is the right time, but a big question is, how is AI going to impact our industry?
So, coming up in this industry in financial services, and I understand that we're a highly regulated industry, and we should be, right? We control people's economics and things like that. And because of that, our industry is, I would say, very slow to change for the right reasons. But I also strongly think that we need to embrace a higher rate of change. People look at financial institutions and advisors just like they look at Google and Amazon and all these technology based companies.
Mhm.
I think that in the future, every company, I don't care what industry you're in, a nonprofit, whatever, you are a technology company that focuses on X.
Right.
And that's something that our industry needs to change. I don't think that we need to be careless and carefree about those changes. One of my great mentors and friends was an ex-Navy SEAL, and he had this saying when we were putting together a big strategy, he'd be like, Laura, I only need a plan that gets me 50% of the way there
Hmm.
because so many things are going to change between now and then. Let's know where the end goal is. Let's get a plan that gets us 50% of the way there. And then when we get there, we know the plan is going to change. And so I think that's like a good middle ground for us to understand. We have these protocols, we're securing people's finances. It's a very sensitive thing, but at the same time, we can't take 5 years to get there. Another friend of mine has a great phrase that says, um, "You're either going to be a disruptor or you're going to be disrupted." and and that's the choice we have right now. And I think we need to balance those two. Is okay, I choose to be a disruptor in a very cautious way that's going to get me 50% of the way there. We're going to evaluate everything. We're going to go from there. So I think embracing that rate of change, we can't take three to 5 years to get there, or somebody else is going to get there before you.
Yeah, I piggybacking on something that you said, I think the value proposition for a lot of advisors is going to change too. And it really, I'm a big believer that the human element is where the advisors are going to go. If an advisor is a stock picker, for example, are they really going to be able to beat AI technology in the future? Financial planning, like everyone's like, oh, that's too complicated. But no, the AI is going to figure it out. They're going to have we'll go to AI for advice on financial planning, our industry, to then give our clients advice as opposed
Yeah,
to, the advisor leaning on technology. I think there's going to be a shift. So whatever those shifts are going to be, I love what you said. The 50% of the plan, like we might even be at a point where we're only doing 20% of the plan because 80% is going to change. It's going to change so significantly. Um,
agree.
and going into that with AI, how do you see it impacting the advisor's role and staff members and such?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it's in the benefit, right? And every tool is in how you use it. So how can we use technology? And that's the word I'm trying to use, is technology instead of AI. AI has been around since like the 1960s. My father-in-law was in the government and developing this. Like, AI has been around for a long time, and AI has become this scary word, but it's just technology. And how can we use technology to open the blind spots of us? So it doesn't matter what your role is. If I'm an executive, if I'm in sales, operations, compliance, etc., how can AI open up those blind spots that I have to help me focus on the right thing, and then I can use the human thing? It's AI is and technology is an assistant to make us better at what we do. There's the phrase of being a bionic advisor, of having technology empower you to do that. Um, I also think personalized advice at scale is a big topic. Traditionally, personalized advice has been reserved for the 1%. The more money you have, the more personalized advice, the more people, all of that. And that's great. But the other 99% of us, we need really customized, personalized advice to help us make those decisions. And I think that technology is going to come in a way that allows advisors to reach down into the economic spectrum, and also have a bigger impact, and also increase the value of their business as well.
Mm-hmm. I know efficiency is a big part of what you think AI is going to do for advisors and staff members too. Any more you can add on that?
Yeah. So if you just think, like, we've been talking very kind of big picture strategy, but then let's kind of dive that down. Like, what do you take and make this a specific next best action? Is, I would say, look at your advisor's daily life and what's creating drag. I would say it's probably like easy, low hanging fruit is client meetings, prepping for a client meeting, taking notes during client meeting. It is creating action items after a client meeting. Are there technology tools that you can use in a very safe space that would decrease the time to prep, have the meeting, and then create those action items, so that humans can be focused on the people to people and technology can be focused on that? If you look at compliance and things like that, you have marketing reviews that are very systematic, that technology can do, and then humans come in and add that texture. So I would say for every firm out there, is like, for efficiency in general, what are the repetitive tasks that your teams are doing? And then what are tools out there that can be brought in a safe, purposeful way to save that time? And then humans are playing to the top of their license. Technology is, in a complementary way, playing to the top of its license as well.
And I think it'll do it all on financial planning, investment management, any kind of wealth management topic. Even sometimes advisors aren't looking at the spending very proactively, if at all. Some of the wirehouses have banking as part of their offerings. Some RAs use an outside service, but the reality is there are so many different things that are siloed. And I can't wait till it all comes together and it's in real time. And so
Great.
they're getting notifications. At first, they'll be through the advisor, but eventually we'll trust the AI that it can go directly to the client.
Exactly. And there's these predictable life events, right? Like, everybody's going to turn 59 and a half, and everybody's going to have a predictable life event there. That's where technology can step in and provide those planning kind of repetitive cadences, but then also deeper technology, which I put in the AI side, can say, you're exposed to this risk or you're exposed to that. And then the advisor comes in and says, let me help you navigate that.
Yeah, and to go off on a little tangent about risk too, from a compliance standpoint, it's going to help the compliance people do their jobs better. But I will say on the other end, AI is going to create a lot more risks that didn't really exist before. Deep fakes and the scams and the fraud will be incredible. What happens? People, their likeness will be replaced with frauds so AI will then have to be used against AI to help on a compliance and legal front too, cybersecurity,
Exactly.
etc.
Exactly. My phrase is move purposefully and cautiously.
Uh-huh. I like it.
So any technology that you're using should be have a specific purpose and have specific limits within the data it has to access, and move cautiously, know the right questions to ask. And that's one of the first questions when I sit down with partners that I work with and with firms is like, what are your protocols? What answers do we need to check off? But yeah, and to your point, it's white hat, black hat, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, is there are a lot of great white hat firms out there that love to battle with the black hats that are trying to do things, and it's honestly kind of funny when they get into like these nerdy fights. But when you find a good like white hat person, they love um, to proactively like, here's your vulnerabilities, here's where we can do things, here's where you can identify things. It's kind of strange, but it's like the gunslinger of our generation.
Yeah. Back on efficiencies, I got you off on a little bit of a tangent on risks there. Do you see, right now AI helping with efficiencies? And we've talked about note takers and that kind of stuff before. Maybe you want to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. So just generally, so when I sit down with the firm, as I said before, my thing is what are the top three things that are creating drag in your business? So doesn't matter where you are, do that. Note takers are a big deal. With the compliance world, it is, and I talked a little bit about this, but it is reviewing. So every firm has this process where people can submit, I'm going to do this webinar, I'm going to do this event, and I need marketing approval for this specific thing. And the firm puts out these specific parameters, but mostly right now, a human compliance officer is going in and reviewing that according to those protocols. There is technology out there that you plug in your specific protocols, you plug in the regulated protocols from marketing, you plug in your um, brand standards, and then AI gives it a first blush. So me, I would never want to do this job, and I appreciate these people very much. But me, as I come in as a compliance person, I have this list of things I need to approve, reject, comment. And if AI can come in and highlight those flags for me, and then I can come in as a human and say, A, that's okay. Or B, yes, this would be how I like you to change it. Imagine how much like time that lifts in your day. Imagine you as a compliance person sitting down and with your first cup of coffee with this big heavy thing on your head and going, okay, it's going to be all right. I just have to do what I do best, is that human thing, not the protocol thing. Imagine the blind spots that can illuminate, so that whether, I have 15 meetings today or two, I can provide that same consistent experience, and then apply that to operations. ACATs and NIGOs and things like that. There are so many things that as humans we're not built to do. Computers can do that in seconds, and then humans can come in to create those efficiencies. And then from an executive standpoint, you think about, I'm preparing for a board meeting, and here's these like 10 different things I want people to analyze and give me this data. And then I'm going to take this human aspect, and then I'm going to prepare what I need to report out to show that I have an impact on this business. That's what AI technology does best, is to do those standard processes and then reveal those blind spots. And I think that's something where, from a technology perspective, we need to focus on making sure that that data is internal and it's not getting out into the world and preventing black hats, hackers from coming into it, but enabling us to have this, instead of 1,000 points of data, here's 3 things that you should be focusing on,
Yeah.
set by the rules that we create.
And I think so you mentioned advisors earlier, and then you talked about compliance and then management. Sometimes I use the doctor's analogy for our industry to understand it, because they don't want to believe that AI is going to really change what they do and how they do it. And oh no, this is a human business, and I trust that that's not going to go away. So I use the doctor analogy, and there are all kinds of studies. I try to follow outside our industry what's going on with AI. All kinds of studies that they do AI versus a doctor, and they feed it the same information. Here's the symptoms, here's the family history, here's the any hereditary issues, and here's like the medical history. And 98% of the time, AI gives a better diagnosis and prescription of what should happen. And now, like, I think what we're going to realize is that human element is so important with a doctor, right? Maybe even more with than a financial advisor. So that industry is being flipped on its head. So the doctor's role is now changing. And so they have to, like you say, take all that layered information, all that technology, all that advancement, and maximize the human element, and
Yep.
be better at what they do. So now going back to what you were saying, like that, I hope that anyone that's tuning in, that kind of crystallizes like, wow, this could have some very significant changes in the near future too. Um,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit about, because I know we've had previous conversations about note takers and where that information gets recorded, where it goes, and kind of best practices and concerns that you might have?
Yeah, so I'll elevate that conversation a little bit, and
Okay.
like note takers is specific, but I think any technology firm that you're partnering with, you should know there's questions to ask. Are they using your data? Is that data private? Where is the data stored? How can we take this data? And so there's a list of questions whenever I do a due diligence, is to make sure that this firm is doing that. And so whether it's note takers or compliance tools or whatever, there's definitely security questions that you should ask. When you were talking about doctors a second ago, another theme that I don't know that we've talked about, but it's big. I'm seeing a huge intersection right now of health and financial. And if you think about it, um, if you have a good health, if you're living well, you are not, sitting in a nursing home somewhere, and you have financial means to enjoy your life. And so there's a big intersection I see between health and wellness. I think that's where like behavioral finance comes in, where understanding somebody's future possible understanding of like what may happen with their health. And so a lot of advisors I'm seeing are kind of reaching into that. How are you working out? Are you healthy? Are you doing these things? And I see that as a big trend, not necessarily with technology, but a big trend in our industry is like it's health and wealth, I feel, is coming together.
And so my question was a little bit generic, but we've actually had 2 questions come in, and they're related to note taking and how do you pick this technology.
Oh,
A couple names were popped in for AI tools, like what do you recommend? And they asked about, Microsoft's AI note taking, Otter, Jump, Zox, and I know there's more. So I'll turn it back over to you. Like,
yeah.
how do you? There's Before I turn it back over to you, I think there's going to be 100,000 companies that pop up. Like it's going to be
I
everywhere,
agree.
right? So how are firms or individual advisors going to make these decisions in the future?
Great question. So I think I break it down in kind of like a pyramid. So first there are general note takers. So let's take it like Otter, Microsoft, Zoom, etc. And then there's note takers that are built for our industry. When I sit down with a client, my first advice is do not do a general note taker like a Microsoft, an Otter, or whatever, because our conversations are very specific and those conversations are going to be very different. So let's narrow it down to just things that are built for our industry. And there's a lot of reports out there, the Ezra report, Osaic report, etc. So there's things to know. Number one question I would ask is are you using our client conversations to train your model? If they say yes, no, there are definitely options out there that don't do that. Then there's also this trend, and Ezra, whom I love, is a great like pushback devil's advocate for me. And he had this theory is that note takers are going to become part of the CRM and all of that. But how we've evolved in our ongoing debate is that the note takers that are built for our industry that go beyond a note taker are the ones that are going to survive. And so that's the second question I'd ask of note takers is what's your vision for the company? Is it simply a note taker or is it bigger than that and really being that virtual assistant to a client? Are you going to do integrations with financial planning software? Are you going to do integrations with all my other things so that everything can be brought together? And so I exactly, Diane. And so the I will say, and fully disclosing, the partner that I have chosen is Zeppelin, and because of a couple of facts. Number one is it's Google engineers that are behind it. It's not a marketing person, it's not anything else. They're Google engineers and very smart and built all the note taking kind of things behind Google. Number two is that they're focused really on being that virtual assistant. When I was at United Capital, we had a best practice is that a relationship manager should sit in every meeting, take the notes, do all of this. There's so many things that an assistant can do to help with meeting notes, meeting prep, client sentiment, things like that. So when I'm evaluating a note taker, I would be okay. That's awesome. This is your core business. Of course, you do that. But what else can you do?
Okay. Any other besides that kind of note taker category, CRM, and kind of how that's spreading out? Any other categories of AI tools that you recommend or know about? Or
Um, when I sit down with a firm, normally like one of their biggest problems, which isn't product specific, it's data. It's data hygiene, it's all of that. We have all these different systems we're working with, nothing feeds into that. And so creating a good data plan so that you aren't having to rely 100% on NPS surveys, but having a good data management system is what's going to empower a company to make the right decisions. And so there's companies that I partner with that don't have a product, but are more of a consultant that help you get that data in the right place, interpret that, do things like that.
and I will say that a lot of the data scientists, which are brilliant people, seem to, in our industry to have driven this AI infusion into technology, and it's a major problem. All the old data here and there, and how it gets cleaned up, and I think that will be interesting because that once that is what did you say, data hygiene. Once you get
Yeah, hygiene.
the clean version of it, AI will be that much more powerful. So it will be a major focus early on.
Yeah. Yeah. And definitely companies that can help you be productive. to understand what's coming. I think that will be a differentiator between, it doesn't matter if you're an insurance company or a financial services company, or, you know, you fix cars, being able to understand what's coming and then how to adjust your business to that. There's a firm that I work with, they work in financial services and also in healthcare. And and they have a very interesting process where they can say, we know based on 4 data points, age, zip code, gender, and race, here's your 97 different life events. And that has applications to every company, regardless of your industry. And taking that data, that outside data, with your inside data and using it for good, using it for good to how to benefit the client. That's, I think, the key where companies will thrive.
One of our attendees wrote something about health and wealth. Thanks for that, Heidi. And I really think that, if you don't have your health, you don't have wealth, right? Like
Exactly.
So it will be interesting to see how different industries cross each other's paths and how they get incorporated. I think that's a fantastic thing. Any other final tools before we kind of do our final thoughts?
No, I feel like this is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Give some key takeaways then for the attendees.
Yeah, we said a lot, and I appreciate everybody for coming. So my next best action I'd like to leave everybody with is move purposefully and cautiously. I would substitute, when people say AI, which could be scary, substitute the word technology, do it purposefully, cautiously, rate of change, disrupted or disruptor.
Yeah. My one thought is a simple one too. A little bit of background. Robo advice, robo advisors was a scary thing, and it never beat the traditional advisor, right? But I think this is a little different, where because people are going to they're going to be able to work less and make more money. I think the adoption rate is going to be faster. Who doesn't want those two things, right? So I do think the industry is going to change. So my final thought is, what would you do with the free time that AI will provide? And we could give 100 test cases. Maybe we'll do another webinar, and that will be some test case or some case studies of how that's happening. But what would you do with the free time? Would you try to grow your firm? Would you try to branch out and do other services? What would it be? Because that in the next 3 to 5 years, all kinds of things are going to happen that whether you're a financial advisor or management or a staff member, that make your job easier and more efficient. That's where you kind of started. So to kind of wrap it up, you don't necessarily have to be the one that is out on the cutting edge and knowing that new technology, be the first one to use it. I think you just need to prepare for what your business is going to look like and your services 5 years from now, because they are going to look different, and that your value proposition of what you've how you've differentiated yourself in the past could be flipped on its head. So don't be afraid of change, embrace it. So I don't know if that was one takeaway, probably put in like 10 all in one, but I am so psyched, Laura, that you made time for everybody. You are amazing. If people want to reach out to you, how could they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So on LinkedIn, I'm Laura E. Holt, CFP. My email address is laura at wtmatchmaker.com. And my website is wealthtechmatchmaker.com. On the website, there is a growth accelerator survey. That's where I start my process. And really, it is going into like, what are your top needs? Let's start a conversation. I believe in long-term partnerships and want to help financial advice firms impact more clients to live better, healthier lives.
Yeah, and I'll make mine really quick. It's byrnesconsulting.com. It's spelled a little weird, Byrnes. You can find all the information at byrnesconsulting.com. We both love to talk about this. I always give free consultations. I'm sure you help somebody out if they have some simple questions and get to know them. So don't be afraid to reach out to us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Laura, any final thing before we wrap up?
Thank you all for coming. Most of you I know, Heidi would love to talk with you. And thank you. I appreciate you and your partnerships.
Thank you, everybody.